Good afternoon, Scott Baker.
It is the afternoon, and it is a good one, and it's Sunday. It is the 17th of August. Glad that you are here with us for Lead Better Live. If you're joining us live or later, we love you all. Yeah, either way. So, and today's
Can't tell if you're teasing or not.
no, the sincerity is the important part. You can't fake the love.
I know, I understand, but I also can't tell if you're teasing or not because of today's field note.
Well, it is a good-natured field note.
Yes,
a little odd,
yes.
Weird in some ways. There are probably a few, I don't know, stereotypical kind of jokes in here. A few to contend with, but the issue is this:
if you're bringing up jokes that we need to list by way of an example, yeah. Odd paragraph there where we're actually like, let me give you an example of the kind of joke that I'm telling.
Sure.
Then you give a joke and it's like,
maybe
the
don't use
joke
those.
that you would read in a 1930s joke book, right? You ever read old joke books like that you're like, oh my goodness, who actually uses these, right?
Yeah.
But back in the day, my guess is back in the 30s that people would like memorize those jokes out of a joke book and then deploy them.
Well, this is a little bit dangerous if you're trying, because we do these field notes every single day and have for 4 years, and so but primarily written by one person. And if you're trying to date that person, I think you're in pretty dangerous territory.
Right.
Now, maybe you're just teasing that person, which would be a good thing. Let's get to the headline. The headline of the field note, for those who are just listening and maybe you didn't pay attention to what you clicked on, is leaders who tease others must be open to being teased back.
Yeah.
Now, in this case, you're going right, in a way, you're teasing the leader who wrote this field note already. Yeah. And I don't know if you feel like you're on safe ground, shaky ground. How do you feel right now?
It's not fair. He's not even here. I shouldn't even brought it up. But, the first thing, I want to get personal with you on this.
Oh, okay.
So I want to go all the way back to teenage Scott Baker. Maybe in his fourth or fifth magic routine that he's doing. For pay, by the way. Paid
correct.
performer.
Yeah, professional
teenage magician. How much crowd work was in your routine at the beginning versus like when you felt like your patter was down? How much more crowd work was added to it? Was that something that you got more comfortable with and added to, and then it became maybe feeling more improvisational for you? How did that progression go?
I'm sure that I got better at it. I do think that one of the things that I learned in that period of time probably is at the heart of this field note in some way, which is, and I'll explain this. Let me define that part, and then I'll hop it back, which is at the heart of whether a leader is who likes to tease people. And there are some benefits to that. We're going to get to the benefits. Some of you feel free to disagree, and you can comment all of that. You can put it in chat if you want. We'll see it actually. And so that if you have this ability to make fun of yourself, if there's a little bit of a self-deprecation that comes into play, that's the actual real value for a leader. Particularly, it's an equalizer in many ways. You can overdo it, but I do think that when you're doing teenage magic, that one of the things you learn to do very early on is make fun of yourself in front of the audience. Because primarily as a teenage magician, you're back, at least in my day, in the 70s. You're doing this for young kids. And so one of the things you're doing is making 5 and 6 year olds feel like they're smarter than you.
Yes.
Right. So lowering the power dynamic. And that's as far as that analogy is going to need to go. I'm not going to write a 120-page booklet on how the lessons of doing teenage magic for 6-year-olds is really going to empower you, right?
I know, but taking it a step further, you find people who are professional at this, stand-up comedians in particular. They do this all the time. They'll always come out on stage, and especially if they're good at crowd work. Those that are the best at crowd work don't come out and feel the freedom to just start hammering away at their audience right away. They'll come out and be self-deprecating right away, as if to say, let me set the tone for the way this is going to go when I approach you, the audience. I'm going to do this to myself. And so the more that you do this, the more you feel like every room you walk into, you're the host of. Like and leaders feel this way, that you're the host. Like you're looking around for the idea of like, whether or not I'm the designated leader in this room, I'm going to make sure that no one feels embarrassed, no one feels awkward. Everyone, like my natural obligation as a leader is to always make everyone feel like they have enough time on the floor. So even if it's not a business meeting, I just have this natural bent to the way that I want to have my brain work this way, that I'm hosting everybody. I'm not going to overtalk. I'm going to sit in the back. I'm not always going to hold court. Like, and if I am going to hold courts, it's only to like allow other people to talk. And it feels almost like I'm letting this happen in front of me. Right. And so, and oftentimes having a gentle teasing that comes out in any situation is an important thing. I think comedians, by the way, even though we already mentioned it, are a great example of this.
Yeah. Right.
Where did that start for you as a teenager, or did it come naturally to you as even before you were a magician?
I think it probably came like simultaneously, because I was actually listening to comedy records and things like that. Yeah. Now, I don't think that I think I probably have an above average sense of humor. I don't think that I'm particularly funny. I've spent a lot of time at comedy clubs. I have some friends who are comedians who do a much better job at writing the jokes in this particular field note than maybe are in the field note itself. Yeah. Now, but there are, by the way, comedians who can do nothing but crowd work. Like they will do an entire hour-long set where they don't have they probably have it in mind, but it's all based on the dialogue with the audience, which is very cool. So now let's get back to the actual draw here, which is you have leaders and we know that workplaces where there is a sense of humor, it's a net positive. People are more comfortable. They tend to stick around. Things that are too serious. Now, the role of the leader here is a little bit different, because I think we all know this element, which is you can probably tease a peer, and a peer can tease you back. And some people will be better friends with different people in the workplace, and you'll be able to kind of, take, a poke at this person, and they'll take a poke at you, and everybody enjoys that. We do that on our team. We do it in our organization. But you'll notice even in our organization, and Mikey, I think you'll attest to this to back me up on this, is sometimes those who are partners in the firm will tease each other around certain personal characteristics or whatnot. Occasionally, if you've had a good, couple of years with that person, you'll see somebody tease down or tease up. But there's not a whole lot of like first or second year people in our firm who are saying, well, let me tell you what I really think of Suzanne, right? And taking a shot at that direction. Because there is an implied hierarchy, and it's a little riskier. Yes. Now, you do have some leaders who will, in an attempt to kind of like lower their own power status, joke around with people, and they'll make a comment here or there. Fine. It's still tricky territory. I'm not sure that on balance, I don't even think every leader can pull it off.
Yeah.
So if there is a leader who can pull it off, the point is we have seen this where there is a leader who can probably be kind of funny and take a point. But if they get hypersensitive, when they get teased back, that all falls apart very fast.
I bet you're right. And I bet some of the funniest people that I bet like Jimmy Carr, who's famous for this crowd work.
Yep.
I bet when he is around his team, I bet he's not as funny, right?
I've actually had lunch with Jimmy Carr several times, and they've been very serious conversations, not at all about comedy. Right. Now, he's very good at writing one-liners, and he's a very particular kind of comedian, and people around that tours on every continent, just about. Yes, right. So you can, and I actually do think that this is the heart of what I wanted to get to in this conversation. And by the way, you and I should actually be making fun of the people who would be watching live right now. We should be teasing them as much as they would be teasing us. To say, on a Sunday afternoon, you're watching two guys just go on about leadership topics to help a leader not dig themselves deep into a hole. And maybe you actually think that we're the idiots for actually doing this live on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
But we actually like doing it. That's the whole point. So
There's
The joke's on everybody else.
There's 32 of the dummies watching on Substack right now.
Okay. All right.
And
all
20
right.
watching on other social channels. Yeah.
Well, listen, we know that if 90,000 people subscribe to Field Notes on Substack on 180 countries around the world, there's a lot of people trying to get better at being a leader. Now, I think that beyond the takeaway that we'll take here, which is as a leader, be self-deprecating, be able to take a shot, great. This really comes down to style, because at the heart of that is a lot of the style insights that we have at Admired Leadership that linger in this. And I'll talk about that in just a second, which is how do you know when to blend? Like, how do you know when you're being too jocular and it's lowering your authority or your ability to be taken seriously? And how are you being too serious when people actually be like, you got to lighten up a little bit?
And it really does depend on what room you're in.
Yeah.
And in some rooms, you're the junior member. And so you want your power markers to be higher. And so telling a joke might be the thing that actually makes you too attractive as opposed to too powerful.
Yeah.
And if you want to be more powerful, telling a joke in the right moment towards the right person might actually increase your power markers, but it needs to be the right kind of joke as well. So it feels kind of complicated. And it feels it's like much more difficult. Like with people have these kinds of thoughts in their head when they're trying to lighten the mood by telling a joke. You know, if you come with a prepackaged joke in this kind of situation, it's not going to be funny, right? And don't use the ones that are in the field note today. They're definitely not going to be funny in that situation, right?
Yeah. Well, okay. Now let's hit a couple of quick points. We might, by the way, we'll just tell everybody, we might go, it's a Sunday afternoon. We might go a little longer than our normal 15 minutes. And so if you get really bored, you can just be like, I'm done with this. That's it. Yeah. So, but let's look at the points, because we're talking about just a basic dynamic that, that is saying, look, teasing builds bonds. Among people, among friends, and among teams. It can also be a way to lightly deliver feedback, but now we're actually in even trickier territory for you as a leader in that sense. Now, if a leader, for example, on our team, and I don't know that I've had anybody that's like a partner in the firm or one of the top people directly make fun of me on this point, but succinctness might be a problem for me sometimes.
Yes.
And so if they were going to be like, all right, we've extended the meeting by 3 hours so that Scott can make 1 point, I would laugh. I would be like, that's a very good point. And then I would make my point in about, 15 seconds, and then I would shut up. Yeah. Right. And so, but the point being, I would want to be able to take that joke, and I'd like them to be able to make that joke.
Yes.
So, but you don't want to get into the territory where you're the leader and you're being like, all right, how can I, let me call the tall person skyscraper, as it says in the field note, right? Or did you take your meds today? Because I think you might get sued if you actually said that joke in a certain circumstance. So you have to be a little bit careful, but you get the point, which is we would all make we'd all take a shot here or there, and that's a net good thing. But if you look at this and you say, well, where can this go awry? When a leader is telling it, you already have a power imbalance in that hierarchy. And if you're doing it wrong, it doesn't lower it, it makes it worse.
Yes.
And so you've got to find a way to either avoid that altogether and make the jokes about yourself, invite that. I think the best way to do it is just to demonstrate it. Is if you have a long-standing relationship on the firm, you joke with that person, they take shots at you, you take shots at them, and what you're doing is you're trying to say by example, we're okay around here doing this. Because there probably are some teams where everybody's like, well, like she drinks a lot of coffee. I'm going to actually try to make a joke about that. She seems a little wired all the time. This isn't, if everybody is so tense about these things, none of it's all going to fall apart, right?
So what we're doing here is trying to, on a personal
level, what are we doing here?
Is building reciprocity, right?
Okay.
We want the reciprocal nature of our relationship to be able to grow. So this is one method to be able to do it. This kind of reciprocity is probably best done in private first, right? Before you start to be like, I'm going to bring the teasing nature of our relationship out in the group, right? You kind of play with this personally a little bit, like in conversations in the office, then maybe in the hallway, and then maybe in front of other people, right? So if you feel the need as a leader, like I really need to build this sense of reciprocity. If you're not getting it in private, then you probably shouldn't take it into the hallway.
Correct. Absolutely.
And certainly not into but building it slowly that way seems like a good recommendation for people, for those who are like, I actively want to have this growing reciprocal relationship with these one or two people. I think it'd be hard to do it with a group.
Yeah.
If you've got 3 people in the meeting that you have longstanding relationships with, and you're able to be jocular and with them, and everybody else in the room is junior and no one else you're doing it with, you might actually be inadvertently setting up a wall that says, wow, I'm trying to set this as an example.
Yeah,
you're also showing there's degrees here. I'll tease with them. And then whatever your relationship with, like when a joke comes flying at you from a junior member is like stern face, you're like, but it does, by the way, I think it does need practice. Yesterday, we had a foster dog in our house that wasn't going into the kennel properly.
Okay.
And so I lunged at it a little bit in order to make it go. Both my teenage sons were there. I fell forward and landed. It's the type of thing that I should have just like laughed at myself. My wife is so good at being able to laugh at herself when she makes like a public foible or whatever.
Yeah.
And my first thought was, don't let them know you're 50 years old, right?
Yeah.
And
I'm enjoying it, just envisioning it in my mind. Yeah.
And my son, he didn't catch me. He was like, he didn't say like, ha ha. I kind of wish he would have said ha ha ha, right? But he didn't.
Right.
He was like, oh, like, you're so, he immediately went to, you're so fragile. And that was the thing that I was
You're so
about.
fragile. Yeah. Right.
And so
did you get a boo-boo?
Exactly. And I wish I would have laughed first. I wish I could have set the tone of being able to be self-deprecating, but my brain didn't go there first.
You were just stunned in the moment. Yeah.
Yes. Right. So it does take practice to be able to do this, right? Really
well,
does.
look, that one other thing that just occurred to me, there were many jokes that occurred to me while you were telling that story, and I'm just going to actually save these for later to go after you with in front of other people for whom it will matter more.
Sure. Yes.
But I just thought of it, how sometimes a leader might figure out a way to have this teasing relationship with a particular person. Like I can think of a leader in our firm who sometimes will joke about a person who, when we get on Zoom calls, tends to be trying to squeeze in lunch right as we get to the call.
Right.
Now, because she's very busy. And so that's just led to the occasional teasing around like, is no one feeding you? Like this is, you're always eating? Like what's what's the weird thing you're having for lunch today? So, but if you're the person who doesn't get joked about, right? If there's 10 people on the team and 7 people get regularly teased back and forth or whatever, and then no one's teasing you, right? Well, then you feel left out too. So it's dangerous territory. This should not be for amateurs by and large. But I want to get back just to the end point on this, because I think it's the takeaway for most people, which is teasing is fine. Get good at it with peers before you're doing it up or down, and be open to being joked about yourself and be really comfortable with that. Be self-deprecating about yourself. But the balance here is that many leaders are too set on trying to be liked by everybody. And so when you used the term earlier, powerful versus attractive, some people probably were like, what is that? We actually have a separate website. It's all free content called thestylecode.com. And there's a bunch of videos there. And it will explain sort of the whole theory and the framework around this idea of power and attractive markers, which is in the literature, well borne out. But and attractive is not like how you're actually physically attractive. That's not it. It's, are you socially attractive? Am I drawn to you? Do I feel like maybe it's a little bit of charisma? Maybe it's just that you're very likable. And there are many leaders who have high followership who lean to the attractive, and their natural style is that. And so then you have other leaders who lean powerful, meaning you will take me seriously, but I might not like you.
Yes.
And now it's not a perfect corollary, but in admired leadership in general, we talk about the idea that there are results leaders. They drive results all the time. And then there are high followership leaders who have people that really like them. And in fact, if that person leaves the organization, 10 other people are going to go with them, right? But you want to be the blend. You want to be an admired leader as somebody who can drive results, but also have very loyal followership. Right. Well, you have a similar pattern in personal style, which is, do you come across in a way that's strong enough to be listened to, right? But that people actually want to listen to you, Like they'll actually follow you out of the room, and you're going to have some of these likable characteristics, and you probably have a natural style. Like there are people you can just think of famous people and say, oh, that person leans powerful and that person leans attractive. But I most often find leaders who are trying to be liked. And if they have a big position, they're trying, and eventually people don't take them seriously because they're trying so hard at that. Right. And so I think the blend on that for this is some occasional teasing, but not too much.
Yep. And it's a balance you need to evaluate for yourself, right? Like, how am I coming across? How do I want to be perceived as well? Mm-hmm. And then you dial those things up and down. I put the stylecode.com website address in the chat there over in the Substack feed. And so I hope people are able to check that out. But it goes right in line with what today's field note is about and the kind of the underlying things about it.
Terrific. All right. Anything else you want to confess or get off your chest about any of this? Any other things you want to do to making fun of the other senior people in our firm while they're not listening to this?
No, I did notice, though, that you kind of sidestepped some of the more specific way that you could have answered about your teenage magician career, that you could have gotten into that, but you really wanted to move past it very quickly. So I'm going to continue to explore that, but probably only publicly on these chats and not privately. I don't want to waste it.
What I would say is it's so long ago, I don't remember. So you say I'm making fun of my age.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you. Good to talk to you.
Thanks to everybody that decided to put up with this. Can't wait to talk to you tomorrow at 3 o'clock for another edition of Lead Better Live.
Absolutely.